Hey there, my people. I am presenting for your viewing pleasure one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt, titled The Switch. Now, what's so cool about this is that it's directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger in his directorial debut. And fun fact, peeps, the young man he's creating is actor Rick Rossovich, who shared the screen with Arnold in 1984 in a little movie called The Terminator. So here's the setup. Aging millionaire Carlton Webster falls in love with a much younger woman named Linda, portrayed by Kelly Preston. Now, Linda isn't feeling this because he's old and frail looking, so Carlton has the bright idea of getting a younger body and winning Linda's heart. Now, that's the setup. Let's get to it.
Tonight's story is about an old man who finds a new wrinkle in the fountain of youth. A twisted tale that we call The Switch.
The scene opens in a dimly lit room. The camera pans from a fire in a fireplace to pills on a table to the rest of this expensively laid out room. Clearly the room of a wealthy man. Then the camera does a close-up on a man sitting in a chair. There appears to be a cane beside him and a small table with the photograph of a young woman. The man reaches out a shaky hand to pick up the photograph. He looks at it longingly. Then the door opens and an old school butler comes in. Now, peeps, we can tell he's old school because he's all dressed up in what I'm thinking might be a tuxedo, and he's wearing a bow tie and white gloves. Peeps, this dude isn't going anywhere but to his job right there in that house with this old man.
Have you been here all night, sir? You're liable to get your death at cold.
I'm in love, Fulton. I am madly, desperately in love.
So the old guy goes on to say that she's cultured, sophisticated, and what's best, she's young. Okay, peeps, that sounds a little sketchy right there. The butler says, "Young, sir?" And peeps, I'm paraphrasing. The butler says, "Brother man, you sure she's interested in you and not after your money?" To which the old guy responds, "Don't worry, I love Linda. I want to marry her very much, but only if she loves me and not my money. She has no idea of how wealthy I am, and I have absolutely no intention of telling her." Okay, peeps, I'm not trying to say nothing about the boy, but dude, you not know George Clooney. You not Idris Elba. No way. You just, old crickety, frail, looking like you 113 years old, and you're saying she's gonna have to love you for you and not your money. Okay, I just kind of wanted to understand that, get that cleared up for myself. And so it looks like the butler, he lets go of a sigh of relief and says, "Rather good thinking, sir." The old guy looks around and he says, "This house has needed new life for a long, long time, and Linda is going to bring it." Then he says, "Come on, Fulton, let's open the curtains."
Open the curtains. Let some light in here. It's been dark long enough. Whoa. Open all the curtains. Time for us to live again, Fulton.
So the next scene opens with Fulton pulling up to, I think, Linda's apartment. And even though Carlton said yesterday that he didn't want Linda to know he had money, peeps, he's driving up in what looks to me to be a Bentley. And back in that day, that car could have easily cost 6 figures. And then on top of that, we get Fulton getting out of the driver's seat and he's all decked out like a chauffeur. But you don't want her to know that you have money. And so Carlton goes inside, I guess maybe her apartment, and her place is all kind of loaded up with a bunch of flowers. She says, "They're lovely, Carlton. They're as beautiful as all the other flowers you've given me." And Carlton says, "Not half as beautiful as you. You made me very happy, Linda, and I'd like to make you happy too." and girlfriend is sitting with roses in her lap, and she says, "Whatever do you mean?" And Carlton says, "I don't have very much money, but I'd gladly share what I have with you if you marry me." Okay, now you just told Sister Girl that you want to make her happy, but then you say you poor. But can she marry you? I don't see no happiness in there for Sister Girl at all. But okay, I digress. And then Linda says, "Carlton, I can." And Carlton asks, "Why?" Like, okay, people. Look at Linda and look at Carlton. And then you tell Sister Girl you don't have no money. But then you want to ask her why she don't want to marry you, okay? And Linda says, "Oh, you are so sweet to me, Carlton, and I appreciate that, but
when I look into your face, I know that I could never marry you. You look too old. Old enough to be my grandfather."
Old enough to be my grandfather. And Carlton says, "I guess I've had this old face a long, long time." And then he has a thought, peeps, and he says as he stands, "But I'm not going to let that keep us apart." Linda stands and asks, "What do you mean?" And Carlton says, "I'll do anything it takes to make you happy, anything." And he turns and walks out the door. Next, we see Carlson in an office, and he's flipping through a photo album. There's faces of people, photos of them young on one page and the same face older on the other page. There are two women in the office, and one of them says to Carlson,
"They say Dr. Thorne is such a miracle worker. He can take as much as 5 to 10 years off your appearance. Wouldn't that solve all our problems?"
The doctor can see you now.
So Carlson is in the doctor's office, and the doctor is telling Carlson what he can do for him, saying, "We could start by tightening under the chin and across the forehead." Carlson says, "That's not enough." The doctor then says, "We could continue with 2 eye tucks." And Carlson says, "That's still not enough." And the doctor says, "Well, we could even add new cheekbones and a chin implant." Carlson says, "I want to look still younger than that." The doctor says, "Well, there are vitamin shots and hormones." He lifts up a photo and says, "Take a look at what we did with this gentleman using those very techniques. I've made him look 20 years younger." Carlson says, "I want to look like I'm 30 years old." The doctor says, "Mr. Webster, I can only turn back the clock so far. At your advanced age, there's only so much that can be done with the human face." Then Carlson says, "I don't think you fully understand me, doctor. I don't expect you to make my face look 30. And the doctor asks, "Then what do you expect?"
Whole new face.
That's impossible.
I heard there's someone who can do it.
Wow, peeps, there's always someone who can do it, isn't there? The doctor stands and thinks about it for a minute, then he says, "You do understand that this kind of referral doesn't come cheap." And Carlton says, "Life is cheap, doctor, but youth is very, very precious." Now, peeps, the next scene opens, and it's a dark and stormy night, which typically signals to me that something scary or unnerving or some dark and dastardly stuff just might jump off. So we see Carlton knocking on this creepy looking door. It opens and this Igor-looking guy with a bandage on his head is standing there and he motions for Carlton to come in. And people, is it me? Or does this place look like some kind of haunted Dracula mad scientist house? You know what? Let me be standing outside some Herman Munster Dracula looking door. And then some Igor looking guy opens it and he's got a bandage on his head. You know what? Look, I would have said, wrong house, and I would have kept it moving. But apparently Carlton is determined to win the hand of the fair maiden Linda, so he goes inside. Look at this. It looks like a hot, haunted, mad scientist house mess.
The anesthetic, the nerve work, the technology, $1 million.
So the doctor tells him it's gonna cost you $1 million. And Carlton says, $1 million? And the doctor says, it's not so much, Mr. Webster. In fact, for a miracle, it's not much at all. And Carlton says, but how can I be certain that it'll work? You know what, peeps? Is it just me or is there a skull on this desk? Okay, I digress a little bit. And the doctor says, because I have performed the operation before. Carlton asks, where? And the doctor says, in Bratislava. Okay, I did some checking, and apparently Bratislava is the largest city of Slovakia. So he did one operation out in Slovakia. Carlton asks, but what about here in America?
But in America, no one believes me. They call me charlatan. They laughed about organ transplants, too. One day they will write about me. One day they will worship me.
Well, that wasn't scary. Much. But peeps, Carlton is still tripping over the $1 million price tag, and he says, I think it's outrageous. $1 million for a simple operation? Then the doctor, he gets mad and he jumps up and says, simple? It's a very complex operation, Mr. Webster, and only a doctor of the greatest challenge would even dare to attempt it. Someone like me. Besides, he adds,
The operation only costs $100,000.
What is the other $900,000 for?
The young man's face.
Okay, peeps, I added that peal of thunder because I felt it was appropriate for the moment. But you know what? I'm thinking I might not be remembering this right. Did I confuse this with an episode of The Twilight Zone where the person went into the room, then came out looking different? Cause this is sounding a little bit scarier, okay? And y'all know it don't take much to scare me, but let's continue. So Carlton says, what young man? And the doctor says, do you think faces grow on trees, Mr. Webster? Like grapefruit? No, they come from living, breathing human beings. Oh snap, here we go, y'all.
A good, strong jaw, solid cheekbones, sparkling green eyes.
And the doctor adds, he has excellent genes. I should know, I bred them myself. Okay, you know what? Wow. I don't even know what that means, but looking at the faces in that tank, I don't think I want to know. Carlton says,
So I get his face.
And I will get your money.
okay, well, these two guys are looking a little scary. Carlton asks, do I get his brain? And the doctor says, don't worry, Mr. Webster, you get to keep your brain. I only changed the skull bone and the flesh covering it. Okay, that's a scary visual. He says, in a way it's too bad because Hans has a very, very powerful brain. And peeps, I guess he's saying that because remember, earlier he said he bred Hans's genes himself. The doctor puts his arm around Carlton and says,
How much do you really want to be young?
Well, I guess he wants to be young a whole bunch, peeps, because next we see the doctor in what appears to be two bodies on gurneys, Hans and Carlton. And it looks like they're in some type of underground Frankenstein's laboratory with Dr. Von Scary all suited up and ready to get to work. After he's completed his operations, the doctor says,
What do you think?
It's not what I expected.
Now, don't worry. It will take time for your face to heal and for your features to take on their permanent shape. And then you will look just like Hans.
Carlton says, I can't wait for Linda to see me. The doctor says, oh, I'm sure she'll be very pleased with you, but you need to wait until your face is ready before you go to her. Carlton asks, where's Hans? And the doctor says, oh, he's around. I'm going to keep him here just in case we need him again. Carlton asks, why would we need him again? And the doctor says, you never know, do you? After a bit, Carlton leaves, and Fulton is waiting outside with the car. As Carlton gets closer, Fulton gets this shocked look on his face, and he says, what have they done to your face, sir? He gets himself together, and as the car pulls away, we see someone watching from an upper window. Peeps, that's Hans. We can tell from that muscular arm we're looking at. And as the car drives off, the camera pans up and we see the back of his head. What appears to be the back of Carlton's head, right? And with the slight turn of the head, we can see the face. Wow. Though the doctor told Carlton to wait for his face to fully heal and convert before springing himself on Linda, of course, Brother Man couldn't do that.
Oh my.
I've done it. Plastic surgery.
Why on earth would you do such a thing?
To make you happy.
But your face is so different and bizarre.
And she says, your body is still old and decrepit. And Carlton says, but I thought this is what you wanted. Brother Man, didn't you just hear her? She said your body is still old and decrepit. So it's not just a face thing. Even though I have to say your face does look pretty plastic and fake. Linda says, I couldn't possibly give myself to an old man. I'm sorry, Carlton. And Carlton says, no, don't be sorry. Just be patient. You know what, peeps? This is why you can't go running down this road. If you're going to lose weight, you know what? Lose it for you. If you're going to do some work on your body, do it for you. Look, Linda's not a bad person. She's honestly telling Carlton why she can't see a future with him. And instead of accepting it, he's trying to change himself into a package she will accept. Look, y'all, listen to this old lady. All you're going to do in this type of a situation is to chip away at yourself where there's none of the real you left. All right, let's continue. So now we find ourselves back at the doctor's lab. It looks like Carlton and the doctor are walking down dungeon steps to the underground lab. The doctor says, of course I can give you a new torso, Mr. Webster. It would be no problem whatsoever. Carlton asks, what about my face? And the doctor assures him it will be perfect.
How much will it cost? New torso.
$2 million.
What? Insane.
To take a man's body, you must pay dearly.
You know, there's this old saying, in for a penny, in for a pound. That means that once you've started something, even if it's risky or challenging, you may as well go all the way. I'm not necessarily an advocate of this type of attitude, but I use it to explain what Carlton is doing. He's not paying attention, listening to Linda, evaluating the risk or determining the potential challenges. He's just jumped on board and he's full steam ahead with this one ill-fated idea in his mind. And that's, if I change enough of the outside of me, Linda will want me. Both Carlton and Hans are stretched out on gurneys, and the doctor has turned on and activated his machines. He puts on his surgical mask and gets down to business. Sometime later, the whole thing is completed, and we get to see a whole different Carlton.
It's amazing. It's an absolute miracle.
Mr. Webster, it's just an operation.
I can't wait for Linda to see me.
Well, apparently the operation was a rousing success because we can hear Carlton's voice coming out of clearly Hans's face. And we see that Carlton has Hans's arms and upper body. And people, what's the first thing to come out of Brother Man's mouth? I can't wait for Linda to see me. And he goes on to add, she won't refuse me now. And the doctor says, I'm sure she'll be very happy, but just in case, you know where you can find me. As you can see, the next scene opens at the iconic Muscle Beach, Venice location. People, back in the day when this episode was filmed, and that's the 1990s, this beach was known and popularized as a space for bodybuilding and fitness. So what you're looking at is a real-life, authentic representation of Muscle Beach back in the day. And who do we see, peeps, at the chin-up bar? Carlton in Hans's body. He's working out and notices that Linda is there watching him. And so he's showing off for her, letting her see all his muscles at work. And Sister Girl is loving it. So much so that the next thing we see is the two of them walking hand in hand down the beach. As they're walking and talking, Linda says, I just can't get over your transformation, Carl. Carl responds, not bad, huh? And Linda says, not bad. You look wonderful. Carlton says, wonderful enough to take a swim? Linda says, sure. And they go over to the changing area to put on their swimsuits. Linda has changed, and she comes out and stands in front of Carlton's changing room and says, you ready? And she just so happens to look down and, okay, peeps, look at those legs. So Carlton steps out and says, hey, let's go. And he sees that Linda isn't moving. She's just standing there and looking down. And Carlton asks, what's wrong? And Linda says, it's your legs. They're so scrawny and old looking. And look at that sagging skin. You know what, sister? You don't even have manners. Okay, you can just say, brother man, look at those legs. But you don't have to pile it on. You don't have to dog a brother out like that.
Oh, for God's sakes, Linda, what more do you want? Won't you ever be satisfied?
I know what I want, Carlton, and you just don't have it.
In the next scene, we see Carlton sitting at home, looking up at a picture of Linda. There's a knock at the door, and Carlton says, come in. It's Fulton, and he's wearing regular clothes and carrying suitcases. He tells Carlton, I've closed the house down. I best be on my way. I shall miss you, sir. And Carlton says, I shall miss you too, Fulton, very much. But with my current financial situation, I can neither afford the house or you. Peeps, Brother Man has run through $3 million for the face and the upper body, and he has only so much money left. Fulton says, I understand, and I hope you find what you're looking for. Peeps, Carlton is back at the doctor's place, and the doctor tells him that he's talking about a whole lower body transplant, and that will cost him $3 million. Carlton says, that's all the money I have left in the world. And anyway, how can he be sure Hans would do this? And the doctor says,
He's starting to enjoy his new fortune. It's made a remarkable change in him. I'm sure he would agree to one final exchange.
So peeps, let's do the math. In the beginning, the doctor charged Carlton $1 million to swap out faces with Hans. And he said his take was $100K and that the $900,000 went to Hans. Well, if we use that as the going rate, then the doctor's total takeaway is $600,000 and Hans's takeaway is about $5.4 million, right? Because he switched upper bodies with Carlton, and now they're talking about him switching out the lower body for the $3 million. So yeah, I can understand the doctor saying that Hans is starting to get a little accustomed to this new fortune. Next we see Carlton and Hans both back at the lab and the doctor getting everything set up for the transfer. Once it's done, we see the doctor removing the bandages from Carlton, and then we see Carlton standing in front of a full-length mirror. And peeps, he now has Hans's total body from head to toe and everything in between, which apparently makes him very, very happy. He can't wait to get to Linda's apartment to show her the completely, totally new him, and he rushes out of the house. So Carlton rushes over to Linda's apartment and he learns that she's moved to a place uptown, and the manager gives Carlton the address. Carlton races over, knocks on the door, and a decked out in all her finery Linda opens the door, and Carlton rushes in saying, I've done it, I've become the man you wanted. And he takes out a ring and asks her to marry him. Linda says, I can't marry you. And Carlton says, why not? And she says, I needed a man of financial means who can make me comfortable for the rest of my life. A man with enough money so I'd never have to worry about being poor. A man who understood the importance of money.
I found my new husband, Carlton. His name is Hans.
Your cocktail, sir.
So there you have it, peeps. Hans ends up with Linda, the money, and Fulton, while the penniless Carlton ends up with a heck of a great body and the Bentley. Peeps, if you will remember, Carlton told Linda earlier in the episode that he would do anything it takes to make her happy, but he never really asked her what that was. He told Fulton he wouldn't tell her he was rich because he wanted her to want him for himself. But here in Linda's parting speech, she wanted somebody who would offer her the security of having money. Peeps, I like this episode because it wasn't over-the-top gruesome, and parts of it was kind of fun. I figured a twist was coming, and I liked the way it played out. Well, there you have it. As always, I want to shout out to my subscribers. Thank y'all so much for committing to the channel. And to my viewers, thank you for stopping by and checking out the content. I appreciate you as well. Peeps, do spread kindness where you are and take out time to show some kindness to yourself, okay? Bye-bye for now.